today we'll be talking about, you know, and I'll be talking about something about the childhood, and people don't understand that I did not grow up with the N64. I did not grow up in the 90s. Okay, people got angry about my N64 video. Of course, I'm quote unquote attacking the childhood, but I just did not grow up in the 90s. Okay, I guess I'm poor because I wasn't born in the 90s. Okay, and the N64 is kind of a commercial failure. It was, kind of a commercial failure. Okay, but some of these comments from 90s kids, okay, because they were pissed off that I wasn't born in the 90s. Okay, obviously I grew up with the uh GameCube. That was the console of the current generation, obviously. But people were pissed off that I, don't overpraise games like Mega Man. Like, I don't like Mega Man. You know, and apparently I'm, we're if you didn't grow up in the 90s, okay, I guess, you're poor. Yes. We're poor if we didn't grow up in the 90s. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Like, just because you weren't born at a certain time era or time period doesn't mean you're poor. Okay? Like, you know. So, yeah. Basically, this is about Sonic. So, Sonic, you okay. When I was a kid, I did not know Sega made their own consoles until I discovered the internet. Was it around like 2010 or something? You know, I was like, oh my god, Sega made their own consoles. How did I not know this? Okay, but yeah, I did not know. Obviously, this is obviously for people who grew up in the 90s, because I bet a lot of people who grew up in the 90s, like, they grew up with Sega consoles. Okay, they grew up with Super Nintendo. They grew up with N64. Okay, I was like, wow, Sega made their own consoles. I think it'll be the same thing with Gen Alpha. Like, they're gonna know from the bat that if they go into gaming history and they don't go down this could be toilet path, they're like, wow, Sonic and Mario used to be rival, but now it's like an accepted fact, But it's kind of like being kind of isolated, did from the rest of the world, for so long, because internet was a kind of like, kind of like very hard to access until like the 2010s for kids. Okay, some kids were able to access the internet, but heck, YouTube was not didn't have a lot of users until like 2010. That was when YouTube and the internet became accessible for like almost everyone. Okay, in the U.S. basically, and basically that's when I found out that Nintendo and Sega became rivals. Okay, now basically, you know, you know, so yeah, I grew up with the GameCube, the Game Boy Advance, and Game Boy Color. I remember the Game Boy Color. I remember that one. It's fine. I remember that we had a Game Boy Color. That was the real old console. We sold, I think, the N64 and the Super Nintendo, so we didn't have those anymore. Obviously, then we bought the Xbox 360, and then we bought the Wii. We didn't like the Wii that much because it was an exercise console. Okay, then we had the Wii U, we had the 3DS, we had the Xbox One. There was no really a lack of PlayStation, obviously. Then the Switch came out, and then we grew up. I grew up. Those are the consoles that made up quote unquote my childhood, basically. It wasn't the N64. Okay, because I think 90s kids need to accept that not everybody grew up in the 90s. They just need to accept this. Okay, back in the day in the 2010s, basically everyone was like, the N64 is the bestest console ever. Okay, best console in history. It's the most revolutionary and greatest console ever. Okay, and yes, for the people who grew up in the 90s, it was such a great and revolutionary console. I'm not going to try to take that away from your childhoods. Okay, but I did not grow up in the 90s. I did not grow up with the, you know, N64. And I didn't even know there was a Sega and Nintendo rivalry. Okay, until I found out until the internet. Okay. And I'm glad there are some people in the comment section that had common sense. Yes, and realized the N64 was kind of a commercial failure because if you look at the sales numbers, because it was accessible. Okay, accessible. Okay. The most overrated video game console, I think, besides current gen consoles, would be the N64. Okay. Most people had the PlayStation, and then you had the people like PlayStation, 100 million copies, N64, 42 million copies. Oh, it's a internet, N64 best console ever. Yeah, that makes it overrated. Okay. I think we also had the PS2, but I never played it. I'm actually looking up best gaming consoles. Did they really remove the list? I think they removed the list. They removed the list of best gaming consoles, probably because they were, or of course the what was current gen back then would be highest 360 and the PS3. Obviously, they'll be ranking those consoles. Okay, most legendary PlayStation consoles. Yeah, PS2. See, N64 is number two. Because of 90s kids. Because 90s kids are going to vote up the N64 because that's what they grew up with. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think I can find the original game consoles. But I remember the N64 was rated so highly. And that's, and also when I found out the internet, I was like, why is no one talking about the GameCube? Why is no one talking about the 360? Why is everyone talking about the N64, Super Nintendo? Why? Okay, why is everyone talking about these really, really old games? Okay, and yeah. It's like, well, now basically it has shifted. People who in Gen Alpha, if they discover the gaming industry, they're going to be switching to people like me and say, hey, these people grew up with this thing called a GameCube, Game Boy Advance. They didn't have tablets and phones back in the day. So now I'm basically now talking like the 90s kids now, okay? Because now we're the new ones, okay? We don't know what, we're now the young and influential generation. So what do you think? Yeah, okay. And that's about this video here. Goodbye.